more than 120 credits. So the total number of credits for final year project is only 6, right? Compared to if you are doing master by thought course, 25% of the credits are typically allocated for master's project. If you are doing master of philosophy by full research, all 40 credits equivalent, okay, are for research. So based on that, you can gauge how much depth and breadth, okay, that you have to cover, okay, as you go deep. So PhD and MPhil, okay, so the terms PhD, Doctor of Philosophy, and MPhil, Master of Philosophy, are philosophical in nature. So what does it mean by that philosophical in nature? So it's about solving problems, okay, and it does not have any specific limits, no bounds when we are scoping our research field, okay, and most of the time it may be cross-discipline, okay, so you have some part, for example, in electronics, okay, merging with some elements in computational intelligence, some part probably in computational biology, and so on. So most likely it's going to be cross-disciplinary. And one thing, as we go deeper, okay, from master's level to doctorate level, so our research areas, okay, are happening on the knowledge frontiers. What I mean by knowledge frontiers, okay, is that you can look at it as a wild west, okay, movies where there are lots of room to maneuvers, lots of things that we can work on, okay. So if you're working with gravity, for example, now, okay, unless you are doing something in physics, for example, nothing much, okay, that you can work on because it's something which is very solid now. But if you're working with gravity is 300, 400 years ago, okay, so that was the knowledge frontier at that time. So the same case now, okay, as for those who are working with PhDs especially, your research is happening on the knowledge frontiers, okay. So the purpose of PhD research is towards expanding, okay, the knowledge frontiers so that we will be able to know more, okay. So at the end of the your research degrees, okay, so you have now to defend a thesis, okay, and academic thesis can be challenged, okay. So I will talk more about this when we look into the thesis defense. Okay, when we talk about academic research, so academic research involves several stages, okay, but these 4 are the things that I can basically summarize. Number 1 is on identifying a research topic of interest, specialized field of interest that you're going to embark on, okay, and then you will next move towards analyzing the problem so that you can understand what are the variables that actually affecting the problem states, okay, and then to understand contemporary solutions and what are their limitations. Once we have we are capable of deriving the limitations, then we would like to conceive, to design, okay, and to implement improved solutions. So this is where the contribution would come, okay, from your degree. But you cannot simply propose something without proving it, okay? So you have to validate and you have to prove that the improved solutions would improve the current solution states. It also important that you have to organize and plan your research works and you have to disclose any findings both orally and in writing. So basically, if I want to divide, okay, the research phases, so I got it from one article, okay, in core77.com website. I like it in a way that it divides research phases into 5 distinct phases. So the first 2 phases are basically where you do reading. You do broad reading where in the examine state, and then you do your focus literature review in the understand face, and then you come out with your own ideas on how to improve the current state of problems, solutions. This is the idea stage, and then you have to do your experimentation basically to validate your findings, okay, and then you have to distill, okay, on how your solution would basically be able to improve the current solution state. So this is the 5 phases that we need to understand. So why understanding these 5 research phases is important? Because the way how the thesis going to be written would pretty much follow these research phases. So when we are working with academic research, okay, we need to follow a proper scientific methods. We need to use proper scientific methods. So good research must be systematic, and at the same time, it must be logical. It need to use proper scientific methods to minimize researchers' bias. So this is very, very important, because when we are doing research, okay, in a fixed period of study, into our duration of study, for example, 3 years to do PhDs, or 1.5 or 2 years to do masters, and so on. So we have limited time. So whatever methods that you use, okay, not only it must be of high ROI or return of investment, but it must be justified. Sometimes is that researchers may have specific bias to use a certain techniques, to use a certain tools, unless it is properly justified, okay? So it may not be the best choice, okay, that you use, okay, in your academic research. So in order to understand methods, okay, method is basically a systematic and a codified series of steps that you have to take to complete a specific task or to achieve a specific objective. And methodology, okay, would involve studying several different methods involved in doing or solving the problem. It's not just simply, when we take research methodology, is about okay, understanding the steps, but it also is a comparative study of different methods. Should you choose experimental over running simulation, or you should be doing analytical modeling instead? So there are several different methods, but the talk for today is not to talk about the different methods that you can use, either qualitative or quantitative. So it also refers to the rationale, okay, and philosophical assumption when you perform a particular study. And it is unique to a given field and to a given scope of study. So you might have 2 researchers doing the same topic, but would have different methods altogether, to come out to their contribution to knowledge. Okay. And one thing that I want to also highlight, and tinkering is not experimental science, meaning that you cannot simply try your luck, okay, and change some values, some parameters, okay, in order for you to come out with your solution. So it must follow a scientific methodology, okay, when you are doing academic research. So a good academic research, okay, must be, number one, it must be controlled. So you cannot do research when you cannot control your variables. Okay, so there are too many variables until you are not sure of, okay, whether the results is affected by variable A or variable B, especially when you are exploring, okay, the causality, okay, what will affect what, okay. And also all the procedures and methods used, okay, must be critically scrutinized, okay, so that you can justify why you are using such procedures, okay, and why you are using certain methods. And also, systematic procedures must follow logical and justified sequence. So there are sequences that you have to do. For example, you have to do sequence A followed by sequence B because there are certain logical explanations that methods that you have to follow. And also, when you are running your experimentation or simulations, so it must be also rigorous. okay, in a way that the procedures that you follow are relevant, appropriate, and justified, and the data sets that you are using are able to show the not only the best case, but also the average and the worst case also. The basis of finding must be valid, okay, and verifiable, and any conclusions that you could draw in your thesis are based only on hard evidence. So you have to have the academic research must have these elements. So let us now talk about the thesis, okay? Because the Viva, okay, that you are preparing is basically on the examinations of your thesis. So based of that, we have to look, okay, what is the thesis, okay? So a thesis basically is a documented evidence, okay, that manifested the research outcome. In the case of PhD and MPhil degrees, so thesis is the full fulfillment. Your passing or your failing to obtain or to get your degree depends solely on your thesis, on how you defend your thesis and also the thesis itself, compared to Master of Science or Master of Engineering or Bachelor of Engineering, where you dissertations or report are as partial fulfillment. So there are other fulfillment that you have to fulfill, and dissertation and report are just part of this overall fulfillment. An academic thesis can be challenged, and it is expected that the candidate must be able to defend it. Okay, a thesis has a clearly defined scope. It has clearly defined length to show that a candidate is worthy of the degree. Whatever degree that it's pursuing, okay, it's to show that the candidate is worthy of the degree. Basically, the candidate understand relevant theoretical issues concerning the topic, and also to show that the candidate is technically competent, able to do research, able to manage research, able to use complex and advanced tools, okay, that the candidate has critical thinking ability, okay, able to come out with solutions or problem in hand, and to suggest improve solutions compared to the contemporary state of the arts. And the last one is that the candidate is able to conduct scholarly research. So this is basically what the thesis can show. In general, okay, thesis must have one solid storyline. Although based on, depending on school of thought, some researchers may disagree when we say that thesis is a storytelling, but I think all would agree that a thesis must have one solid storyline. And you have, as the candidate, you must be able to guide your reader. What you need to guide them on? Number one is on the importance of the research problem. So this one is to give value of your research. So you must be able to guide the reader, tell the reader that your research problem or your research field is of high importance. Number one, okay, and then for the number two is that on the current state of the art solution. So you must be able, okay, to tell, to educate the readers what are the current state of the art solutions, and also you'll be able to analyze what are their limitations. And then you must be able to clearly state your thesis contributions, how it would contribute to knowledge, okay? And then validations and proof of the contribution. So this is typically the results and the discussions, okay, and how to link them with the theoretical basis, theoretical base. And then on conclusions on the significance on finding and also the way forward. So these are basically the ideas. Okay, when you write your thesis, either each ideas will be in one chapter or in 2 chapters or 3 chapters. It depends, okay, on unique to your specific work. So if I want to link the 5 research phases that I have mentioned before this, okay, to the ideas, okay, on how you're going to write your thesis, it could be something like this, all right? So when we perform the examine phase, we look into the problems. We want to have an overall perspective, okay? So this will be the motivation. And also this will lead to the problem definitions. When you are addressing, or you are doing research in one specific area of research, okay, it is very important for you to be able to define your problem clearly, because by defining your problem clearly, you'll be able to understand what are the primary parameters affecting the problem and what are the secondary parameters, okay, that could affect the problem. Okay, so by understanding the problem, so you will be able to look your problem from different perspective, and you can easily match uh, existing works or existing solutions, okay, towards solving that particular problem. Then in the understand phase, this is when you do your focus reading. So when we are doing focus reading, you would go into much specific detail works which are related to the work that you are attempting. Okay, so we would go deeper and to find patterns, look into, we start to cluster works into different categories. Okay, so this is where we also need to identify your research, the research gaps. Okay, so what are the limitations of one solutions compared to another solutions, and then you would be able to come out with your hypothesis. So your hypothesis is basically your assumption, in a way that if you have this particular problem and then you want to solve it using this approach, what is the expected outcome that you would expect? Okay, so once you have understood the research gaps and hypothesis, so the third stage of the idea is when you specify what is your general aim of your thesis. At the end of your thesis, at the end of your work, or this at the end of thesis, so you want to propose something. What is that thing? Okay, that is the aim. And then in order to achieve that aim, there are objectives that you have to do, specific task, okay, that you have to do in order to achieve the thesis aim. And by also specifying the scope, okay, that limits what would you do and what you would not do, what is in the coverage of the thesis. And then you would have a general methodology on how you're going to do it. Okay, would you rely on simulation platform, or would you need to do simulation plus experimental, or would you come out with analytical model first, okay, and so on. Then you would come out to the fourth stage when you would do your research design. So basically you would be designing your research. This is the platform that you're going to do. This is where you will get your data sets. This is the parameters that you will control, and these are performance matrices that you will observe. So all those things, okay, come in this fourth stage, and then you will get your data, and then you will get your results. So you uh, examine causality, okay, between variables and also the performance metrics, and then you will do comparison with existing works, and then come to the last stage, which seems to be quite straightforward, but it is not. Okay, this is when you need to discuss whether your results actually confer, or meaning that you it follows, okay, the theoretical basis. Okay, so what we don't want is that the theory state that it should go to the left and your result point to the right. So then you have issues discussing your results. And also you look into the implication of findings, of your findings on how much it would improve the current solid state. And then this is where you can clearly dictate or summarize, okay, state your contributions. So based on this, okay, based on the previous slide, we understand what research stage is all about. So we can come out with a minimal thesis organizations. Okay. However, bear in mind that each thesis is unique. It depends on specific field of interest or field of research that you are doing. It also depends on you as a writer, and also depending on the editor, which is your supervisors. Okay, so these are basically the good starting point. Of course, the first one you would have your abstract. So abstract is a very short summary of the thesis, describing the important parts of your thesis, the problem, the research approach, and also emphasizing on the original contribution. Abstract is just the summary, or what I usually say to my student, it is just a movie trailer, okay? It is a summary of thesis anyway. So chapter 1 is when the introduction chapter is when you overview the problem. And then you give value to the problem, stating on how important it is. You define your problem, okay? Then you summarize existing works and the statement of your hypothesis or specific questions to be explored. So the key point here is that the introduction shouldn't be too long. Okay, it shouldn't be too long, and you should make it readable by everyone. Okay, when I say everyone, so there are two distinct groups. Okay, your readers be number one are those who are new to the topic, and you can have experts who are reading thesis also. Okay, some of those experts are basically your examiners. So you need to have a good balance. Okay, and at the same time it must be correct. Okay, on everything that is presented in thesis. The second chapter basically and is when you reviewing the literature. This is basically the outcome of your reading. The first thing that you that must be there is the synthesis of the state-of-the-art solutions related to the thesis work. Okay, so you have to review contemporary solutions. You may also include background of the problem if you want to define it much more clearly. Okay, to guide readers to understand the scope and the context of your contributions later on, and also you discuss limitations of the state of the arts so that you can demonstrate your niche, your scope, and originality. So whatever it is, okay, the purpose of chapter 2, okay, your literature review is not to basically summarize all the knowledge base that you read. For example, you are reading 1,000, 2,000 papers, okay, when you are doing your study, okay, it's not about that, okay, it's not about paper 1 talks this, paper 2 talks this, and so on. It is not an annotated bibliography. Okay, so you have to process it so that your reader can understand your contributions. Okay, so you have to guide your readers on this. So the third chapters is basically on the methodology. Okay, basically this is your proposed work. Okay, it should be the central concept of your work. You have to specify your method of research. You have to specify your research design and procedures, subject samples of studies, and also the construction of valid and reliable instruments for you to do your proving and all this. Chapter 4 is basically on validations. So this is where you describe if you need to experimental details so that you can provide evidence to convince the readers on your thesis validity. Okay. And also to convince on the systematic methods that you use, and also it is your logical arguments, okay, to support your work. And chapter 5 could be your conclusion. So where you summarize what you have learned and how this can be applied, how it's going to improve the current solution state, and also for you to mention possibility future research. So this is just for the minimal to get the flow to work. So in some of my my past experience as a supervisor myself, some students have you know thesis with 6 chapters, some with 9 chapters, depending on their work. So this requires thorough discussions between you and your supervisor. Okay. Okay. A word of cautions, though. Okay, is that writing thesis is not putting all thoughts on papers. Okay. So and from your thesis also, so you will be judged. So you have to also expect that you put the best possible thesis. Okay, so you should never expect others to care if you don't, for example. So I have examined many theses before where spelling checkers were not used. So the role of the examiners, I will discuss on the role of the examiners later on, would not be happy reading your thesis. Okay, so that's why good writing would requires good editing. Okay, so you and your supervisor need to uh, play good roles. Okay, so edited thesis not necessarily good, but unedited thesis are surely bad. Okay, so this is something that I want to share. All right, so content versus presentations. Okay, so good content is a must. All right, so meaning that when you are writing your thesis, okay, so most probably, okay, is that when you are writing your thesis, you will have, your thesis will be different, okay, than what you proposed in your proposal defense. Very, very likely. All right. So, for example, in your proposal defense, in your proposal, you are targeting A, B, C. So you would have contributions toward this. Okay. But as you go deeper into your experimentations, okay, your work actually has shifted. Okay, the directions. Okay, from going north, you are going northeast. Okay, so you have now to make sure that your thesis focuses on the strength of your work, not on the completeness of your proposal. So you must focus on the strength of your work. So, and then you have to make sure that you make clear, confident statements whenever possible to emphasize your best results. But at the same time, good presentation is absolutely necessary. So when you are writing your thesis, okay, the thrust, okay, or the directions or the storytelling of the thesis must be clear from the first word, okay, that you put on the thesis. All right. And the writing must be concise. Okay, you don't use too many words which are unnecessary. Okay, and all the sections, the chapters, okay, the paragraph, the flow of this point of discussions, okay, have to be coherent at the same time. All right, and you always acknowledge the contribution of others. Okay, because when you are writing your thesis, okay, so you have to basically back up, okay, your claim, back up your statement by citing, referencing to contributions of others. So when you are writing your thesis, all right, so these are the important aspects. Okay, number one, you must have a single thrust. Okay? You must have a single solid storyline, idea or point of discussion. You must have clear organizations, so make sure that you don't mix and match certain topic of discussion in the same chapters or in the same sections. And then you must also maintain recursiveness when you are writing at each level, because if you look at the recursiveness of writing, you have the introductions, you have the detail, you have the summary. So you see that things across all level of your thesis. When you look from the chapters perspective, so you have introduction chapters, you have the details, and then you have the conclusions. So inside each chapter, you must have the introductory sections, and then you have the detail, and then you have the summary of chapters. Inside each section, you will have this. So by having this recursiveness, okay, in your chapters, you would now be able to guide your reader clearly by giving top-down view, okay, before going into the details. And then you must have a strong supporting materials, citations, proofs, and so on, okay, that actually support your work. So you must use suitable language, unambiguous choice of words, sentences, sentence structures, so that your expressions, you'll be able to show clear expressions and clear perspective. Your thesis must be properly spelled. Okay, you must use correct grammar, correct punctuations. If you don't care any of this, okay, why should examiners? So this is what I want to tell. So the criteria of a good thesis, of course, one is the content. So you have to focus on the strength of your works. You need to emphasize your best results. Your expression must be clear. So you must check for ambiguous statements, remove them from your thesis. Your writing must be concise, must be focused. Use minimal direct sentences, and also your paragraph shouldn't be too long, and so on. So you have to also check that your chapters and section links link together well, and also you need to cite, okay, support your works, and acknowledge contribution of others. And of course, doing research, doing academic writing is an intense activity. It is very, very intense. So if the command of language is of utmost importance, all right? So poorly written thesis, okay, could not relay your ideas, okay, whatever you have in mind. So if you writing, okay, in a language other than your mother language, like me, like most of us, okay, you need to get specialized editing help. Okay, so you need it. So whether in the form of spelling checkers, grammar check, okay, or probably hiring um, professional proofreaders, okay, you need to have that. Okay, so I think I would just end the first part of my talk, okay, before we go into the second part. Okay, so I would, if you have any questions, you can actually put it in chat. So I'll try to answer them. Okay. So I would invite, if you have any questions, so that you can write in the chat. Okay, so I have one question here. Any format for Viva presentations? Okay, so for the presentation itself, okay, I will cover in the second part. But let me just answer it. Is there any specific format for presentation? So there is no specific format. Of course, from the perspective of UTM, UTM has its own template, so it's better to use UTM template. In terms of the structure, okay, so the structure of your presentation would have the structure of uh, the flow of the thesis itself, which is it must have this motivation of work, problem definitions, research gaps, aim and objective, and so on. Okay, so I have seen several presentations where the researchers put all this first, okay, up to the aim, objective, and scope, and then it refers back to related works. I'm not against that, but the research gap or the summary of existing work has to be presented first. And moreover, when we are presenting, we have limited time. For MPhil, you are given only 20 minutes to present your work, all right? So meaning that 20 minutes, you can only use like probably 25, at most 30 slides. Otherwise, you will overrun the time. For PhDs, it's 30 minutes, so you should not use more than 40 slides. So roughly that is the thing. So to answer the question, yes, there are no specific presentation format for Viva. How can we link the problem statement? Okay, let me just read this. How can we link the problem statement with scope and significance of study? All right. First of all is that we have to understand what is problem statement. Problem statement is not motivation of work. For example, let's say we talk about renewable energy. People talk about the use of solar for electricity generation. So that is not problem statement. That is just motivation of work, showing on the importance of your topic. When you want to really highlight on the problem, okay, so you can have a top level problem definition. For example, when you say about solar generations, so there are several factors affecting it. Number one is on the technology itself that used to harness the solar energy. Number two, for example, is the environmental condition, clouds, rains, dust, and so on. Okay, these are still not yet there. But once you focus to specific area of your work, for example, you are looking into the way how the heat exchanger works. Okay, so now you have specified the scope of your work. The next thing that you would to do is to review other works similar to what you are attempting in dealing with heat exchange. So this is when your focus review would come. Okay, you would be reviewing technology or techniques or materials for heat exchange and so on, and then you synthesize what others have done and what are the limitations in a way that you're now able to state. Okay, so the use of this material for heat exchange has been shown to be promising, not only due to its cost effectiveness and so on, okay, but also for its availability. However, okay, for this range of temperature, and it has a lot of loss. So now this loss, although it has been proposed by earlier works to this and so on, but it can still be improved by adding this whatever. So now that is your problem statement, because your problem statement now able to highlight the limitations of existing works, and from there it can help you to point, okay, my thesis is about improving the design of the heat exchanger by using this material in a way that we are targeting to improve the efficiency by this much. By how? By number one, proposing a new fin structures. Number two is to propose this and that and so on. So this is where you can clearly link the problem, okay, with your scope of work and so on. Okay, so I'll try to answer next. Okay, future work is just expectation what can be done or improved, or we should be provide any data evidence. Okay, the purpose of the future works, number one, is to show that your work is not a dead end work, meaning that it has value, it can be extended towards other research fields or research works. So you do not need to provide any quantitative data to support, but the reasoning on why you think that the work can be extended, okay, for future works has to be there. It must be logical, all right? So this is for answer. One ask, now due to COVID, the Viva has been down. How do you think will affect the Viva presentation? Will it be positive? Okay, the answer is a little bit, it could be both. It could be negative. Okay, Positive, let me tell the negative first, okay? So the negative first is because the defending your work online, okay, you will have so many limitations, okay? Limitations in a way then your internet connection may not be that good, okay? And then the session itself, you might be interrupted when the panel couldn't clearly hear what you're presenting, okay? And you will not be able to see the expressions, okay, of your examiners, whether the examiner is satisfied with your answers, or the examiners may have, different view of your work. This uh, but at the same time, it's positive, okay? In a way, then the examiners and the chairman know the limitation of online Viva. They may, more, okay, in limit of the so you might okay, so you might
Prof, your voice is not clear.
the voice is not clear. Oh, okay, sorry. So can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay, thank you. Okay, let me just answering. Okay, so I was answering on the question. Okay, so due to COVID, the Viva is done online. So can we see it as positive or negative? Okay, so on the negative side, so we may have issues with the limitation of technology, probably the network speed and so on, in a way that you might need to adjust the way how you do your presentations, or you need to slow down a bit. You don't talk too fast, okay, because of the slight delay, okay, and then probably during the Q&A, you have to pause a while to make sure that your answer can be heard by the other parties, okay. And the negative thing also is that you will not be able to see, okay, the expressions of the examiners, whether they're happy with your answers and so on, okay. So but at the same time, since this is unprecedented, okay, and everybody is more tolerating, okay, with these limits when you are doing presentation. So probably at the same time, you can also hide your limitation as well, okay, when you are presenting online, okay, in a way that they may tolerate you a lot more, okay, compared to physical defense. Let me just scroll down. Okay, so I have another question. In the problem statement, should I write a general problem statement, or we need to be specific problems, such as the problem associated with particular methods? So the answer is both. Okay, so when you are describing your problem or defining your problem statement, of course we have to go top down. So we go starting from something which is generic, pointing to specific type of solutions, and then you do analysis on that. Okay, so both are needed. So it is also important if you can describe your problem by using some kind of illustrations. Okay, so sometimes then it's easier for you to demonstrate, okay, now this is now the problem. Okay, I mentioned just now probably on heat exchanger and so on. So now you identify what are the factors that are contributing to it and what are the outcomes that you might expect. So by drawing just a simple box with few inputs and few outputs, you would be able to illustrate, okay, the potential causality. What are the impact of certain input variables, okay, towards certain parameters. So that one could be a good one also. If you can also describe your problem mathematically, okay, so it also good. Okay, another question is that since we normally review tons of papers, so how much of those are we expected to put in literature review chapters? Okay, of those selected, how many are we expected to put in the summary table? For instance, 100 papers in literature review, should I put all 100 in the summary table? All right. So based on my own personal experience and based on what I experienced with my students is that most likely you have only like 20 pages that form solid foundation of your work. Okay, that is based on my experience. Probably in your case, you will need more than that. Okay, so when you are reviewing this literature, so you should not review them one by one. You should review them based on different perspective or based on different groups. You have to categorize them. You have to categorize them in a way that, okay, these are the groups that perform optimization using heuristics methods. And these are the ones that use, deterministic methods. And these are the works that perform optimization at runtime. And these are, so meaning that when you are discussing based on groups. So when you're discussing based on groups, so you have to give first the general characteristics that belong to that particular group, okay, and then you can actually highlight one that actually the nearest to the one that you have, okay. So when you want to put in the summary table, so once you have categorized them into different categories, you can have multiple tables now. Multiple tables where you now review techniques based on, like I said just now, based on heuristic methods, some on deterministic, and so on. Okay, so now you can have multiple tables to summarize the work. So the question for next session: what an examiner most looking from the student during Viva? I will answer this later on. Okay, Prof, can you give a brief description of qualitative and quantitative research method? To tell you the truth, I know a bit on qualitative, but we are not good at it, okay? Because for us engineers, okay, most of the methods, I think all are quantitative methods. It's based on either analytical modeling or simulations or experimentations. So, sorry, I couldn't answer this question. I don't have knowledge for that. Is there any link of article relating to linking research phase you can share? Okay, so I'll try to find one and then I'll share with the organizers so that the organizer would be able to share with you. All right. During the thesis writing, how do we bring our published objective in the thesis without counting plagiarism against us? All right, so your own work, when you are the main author, okay, if you read the fine prints in the copyright agreement that you sign, okay, so you are allowed to use it for your own personal work. There are different school of thoughts. I have read one school of thought where they say that, okay, your work that has been published cannot be used in your thesis. I somehow disagree with that school of thought because your work that you have published in papers, okay, basically part of the overall works, okay, that you put in your thesis. So there is in my school of thought, you can liberally use your own works as part of your thesis. So in fact, I would encourage you not to rewrite the work that you have published in your papers when you want to include them in your thesis. Okay, I would suggest you just to simply use it because it's your own work. But if that work, okay, is when you are a co-author, you are not the main author, then that one will have an issues because the main contributor is not you. The main contributor is the first author. All right. unless your first author is your professors, your supervisors. Then, but if that one comes from your own research work, then you can use it in your thesis. Okay, how to answer properly Q&A. Okay, this one I will cover it, okay, when I cover the second part. Okay, so we'll pause for 2 minutes. So exactly at 11 a.m. So we'll continue with the second part of the presentation, which is on the oral defense process. Okay, all right. So I would continue with the second part of the presentation. I would want now to talk about the oral defense process itself. All right. So before that, there was a questions on how many pages limit in for the thesis. So it is stated in the thesis manual. If I'm not mistaken, for PhD, it shouldn't be more than 300 pages. But I'm telling you, okay, to write even 150 pages, okay, is challenging, okay, in my field. So writing 300 probably will take you so much time, okay, on that. All right. So now let's talk about the defense process, all right? So like I mentioned previously, okay, for MPhil and PhD, your passing or your failing your PhD comes from your thesis. So that's why in the first part of the presentation, I talk about the importance of the thesis itself. Okay, so now let's assume that so you have written your thesis, so you have now submitted your thesis for examinations. So what comes next? All right. So thesis examination or oral examination is a process to make sure, to assert that the candidate is capable of making original, valuable contribution in the active field of research. Number one. Number two is that the candidate for PhDs is supposed to be at the PhD level. And the candidate for an MPhil supposed to be at that master's level so that they can work as a specialist. So meaning that the candidates have comprehensive knowledge, okay, expected at their level, okay, and in his or her specific area of research. And also to assert that the candidate is capable of making professional opinions. So when I say professional opinions means in the Malay language, bukan cakap kosong, meaning that you are not just talking without be able to presenting facts and evidence, okay, of what you say. So that are well informed and backed up by sound knowledge and legitimate reasoning. And to make sure that the candidate is capable of performing independent research. So this is highly important for PhD candidates. And the body of knowledge submitted in the thesis is comprehensive. It's able to stand alone. Okay, so able to stand alone. So this is the reasoning, okay, why we need to have a proper thesis defense. Depending from countries to countries, Okay, so in Australia, for example, okay, probably due to the geographical, vastness of the country, okay, so there are no vivas or there are no oral presentations when defending the thesis, all right? Uh, so in certain countries, okay, so you have to do oral presentations. Either oral presentation as a process to assess, or in some countries you may have two-stage defense. The first stage of defense is like the Viva that we know here in UTM, and the second stage of Viva is when they have to do public address, okay, with full ceremonial, public sharing sessions by the candidate. All right. Uh, in uh, in my case, okay, when I defended my dissertations, okay, it is open to public also. All right. But here in UTM, the oral defense session is a closed section. Okay. So the Viva process, okay, is when you will defend your thesis, and it is arranged after all examiners have given their initial results. So once you submitted your thesis, so the thesis will be sent to the examiners that were endorsed by the school or the faculty. And then once we have received the examiners, so we will call for oral defense session. So it will be attended by, number one, the candidate himself or herself, the supervisors, the examiners, and it will be chaired by a chairman. Okay, and optionally, you may have a representative of the school and faculty. All right, and this may or may not be a good sign. All right, so typically is that when a representative of school or faculty have to attend, so the Viva session, it means that there could be a potential conflict that need to be resolved. Okay, so this is optional, okay, for a representative of faculty or school to attend. All right, so and then the candidate will be allowed to give 20 minutes presentation for MPhil candidate and 30 minutes for PhD to present their works. Right, and then it will typically followed by two Q&A sessions. Number one is the top-down Q&A, and then the second session, we will go into page by page examinations of the thesis. Okay, and then afterwards, the candidate would be asked to leave the room for deliberations by the examiners, with or without the supervisors. Okay, so this is the power vested to the chairman. Okay, depending on the situations, okay, whether deliberations is with the supervisors, or could be the supervisors are asked to leave the room. Okay, it can take anywhere between 1.5 up to 5 hours, 6 hours. Okay, I have seen 6 hours Viva. All right. So who are the thesis examiners? Okay, thesis examiners are the endorsed examiners by the school or by the faculty based on the nomination of the supervisor. So the nomination of by the supervisor is not final, meaning that the school or the faculty may actually change, okay, the examiners to other suitable examiners. All right, and all examiners are the domain experts. So I use the term domain expert because he or she or they may not actually work in your really specific area, your specific field of research, but in the general area of research. All right, and I just put the examiners are human after all, so humans are unique, so you cannot really predict, okay, which examiners you will get, what type of examiners, the one that smiles a lot or the ones that never smile, okay, the one which is old, the one which is young, and so on. You can have a mix of those. So I cannot guarantee, okay, which one you will get, okay. So the outcome, okay, of the thesis examinations could be either one of these 5 for PhDs, and then for MPhil, you don't have the D1. Okay, so what are these? A, meaning that you don't have corrections, except probably for few typos that you can fix within half an hour. Okay, so but in general, it's considered that there are no corrections are required. Probably you will find it one every 500 and so on. So could get these results. Most students will come under this category, which is pass with corrections. All right. So B is pass with corrections. So there are 2 subcategories. One which is B1, where minor corrections are required and to be verified by supervisors, mostly on the presentation or the content of the thesis. It's more like the writing, typos, editorial kind of corrections. B2, okay, is when you have major corrections. Okay, meaning that you have to rerun some of your experimentations, so you might need to do further analysis. Okay, so it typically covers on improvement on the content and the presentation of the thesis. You're given up to 6 months. So when I say given up to 6 months, of course you can actually submit after 1 day. Okay, if you're able to fulfill all the concerns raised by the examiners. C, okay, is that your current state of your thesis is not accepted, but the examiners sees that there are merit. Okay, if you do further rework, then the thesis has can contribute, okay, to your to knowledge. So for MPhil, you'll be given 6 months, up to 6 months, and for PhD, up to 12 months. Okay, I forgot to mention that for B1 for MPhil is 1 month, and B2 for MPhil is 3 months. Sorry, I forgot to put that. So these 3 months and 6 months are for PhDs, 1 month and 3 months for MPhil. So there are 2 subcategories for C. Number 1 is C1, without oral examinations. So since you have to resubmit your thesis, you have to repay the fees for thesis examinations, but without calling for oral examination sessions. The final result will be based on the lowest decision by the examiners, meaning that if one examiners give B1, another examiners give B2, then the outcome of your re-examination of thesis is going to be B2. All right. So in the case of C2, so you will have oral examinations that you have to undergo again one more time, and you will have the final results deliberated by the examiners. Okay. And for PhD only, you may have D. Okay, the results of D, where instead of getting a PhD, you will be awarded MPhil degree instead. And the correction now is to be verified by the supervisors only. So this is basically you're coming for PhDs, but you are getting MPhil instead. And the lowest one, which is E, you will not be awarded any degree at all. All right. So what are the potential Q&A? All right. So what are the essence, okay, of a thesis defense? Number 1, of course, is on how well is your accomplishment, what you have accomplished given 2 years, 3 years, 4 years of your study. Is there enough original work and innovation in your work, or is your work is more like engineering work, okay, rather than academics? Does the candidate show scientific maturity, okay, meaning that not only you are well versed with your area of research, but whether or not you have knowledge, okay, expected at your level in your specific area of work. Is there an extensive amount of work? So these are basically the essence, okay, that we'll be checking. Potential questions, okay, is on how well you have read, meaning that how many have you done sufficient literature review? Can you critically define the research problem? Okay, so This is one of the biggest problem that I have encountered throughout my life here, okay, and involvement, okay, in managing postgraduates matters, as well as uh, examining thesis. All right, is that the research problem, okay, is not well defined. Okay, so it's typically presented in two in a very generic form. It's more like motivation of research rather than the analyzing the research gap. Okay, so can you summarize or identify and criticize state of the art? Is your presentations of related work is just, you know, saying that, okay, this work, this there did this, okay, and this work did that, and so on, rather than able to cluster them, categorize them, able to find similarity and differences, okay, and criticize whether this is appropriate or not for your solution. For example, let's say, okay, you want to do optimizations. Your optimization is supposed to be to work at runtime, and now you are choosing a heuristic optimization methods where it will require multiple iterations, okay, or you have to do it multiple times before you can get a suitable, uh, you know, uh, solutions. Okay, so then we would want to know, okay, why you are choosing this. Okay, so this one is important for us to see, okay, whether you can criticize and justify your choice. All right. Can also you identify direction for extended works based on what you have read, based on what you have analyzed. Okay, can you look at potential gaps that you may work, so that you may work on. So eventually you may have, based on your reading, 10 potential gaps. Okay, but when you're choosing one. It's okay. It's expected to be like that. Okay, it's not that you have 10 gaps, you have to address all 10 of them. No, you wouldn't have that time to do that. Okay, so you have to choose one which the most critical, okay, that can have the most improvement to uh, to improve the current state of the solution that we currently have. My additional checklist in much more other detail is the problem properly defined, meaning that I want to know if the candidate able to describe, okay, what are the potential variables that will affect the solutions. Okay, so for example, let's say you want to make the car faster. Okay, so one element in the that limit the velocity of a car is rolling resistance, the tire with the tarmac. So let's say now you want to say that, okay, I want to now reduce the tire from 4 to 3. Okay, you have justification for that. So by reducing the rolling resistance by 25%, you're expecting this to have higher velocity, for example. So it depends on how you justify things. Okay, but you're able now to identify what are the variables, okay, that actually affect, okay, or can improve the problem. Is the literature relevant? So this is the next thing that I want to know, whether relevance here could be of recent references, or could be from strong references. For example, let's say you are referring to one paper published in a conference whereby you know that the authors work in this topic only once for that particular paper, and then after that they work in different topics altogether. Compared to, for example, your reference is based on the work published in a very strong journals by a group of authors, okay, that work in this field for the past 5 years. So then which one you would believe more, especially if the directions, okay, that you may get from these two papers are different. One is pointing to one direction, and the one pointing to another direction. So we want to know that. So is the review critical or just descriptive? Meaning that I want to see whether you are able to synthesize what you have read and able to create your own model of your knowledge. Or rather than you are describing, paper this talks about this, and then you have one paragraph. And then another paragraph, you say that, oh, in this paper, it talks like this, it worked like this, and so on. So this is what I call descriptive. It doesn't tell me much, okay? So, so this is next thing that I want to know. Is the review recent and comprehensive? Meaning that list of references, are they recent in the past 5 years? There are certain cases where you still need to refer to the first paper that proposed the techniques, for example. It may be published in 1950s, so there's nothing wrong with that, okay? Because that's the first paper that proposed that, okay? But if 50% of your references are quite old, in 1990s or in 2000s, okay, and so on, then we would want to know, okay, why your citations, your references are quite old. Why is it so? Okay, so is it comprehensive, or are you just covering only one techniques that you know most? Okay, all right. Because one part of doing scientific, using scientific methods is to reduce researchers' bias. Sometimes we are biased to certain topic. Oh, I have worked with end colony optimization before. Okay, I want to use this, okay, for my work. So we as an examiners, we want to know why. Why it is suitable to address your problem. Okay, how your other contemporary researchers view, okay, of this. All right. So also on your reviews, does it link to the method in the thesis work? All right. So for example, you are reviewing one topic only on deterministic optimizations, and then suddenly in your objective you want to use heuristics. So we want to know why. Okay, are you proposing something new that never have been attempted before? If the answer is no, why you omit the work similar to your work? Are you hiding something? So this is the potential of views, okay, from the examiners. Okay, can the gaps of contemporary works be clearly highlighted? So we want to know whether you're able to really highlight. Okay, what are the gaps? Okay. The next thing what we want to ask, okay, do you know what you are doing? Okay, can you clearly identify your problem statement? This is from the review, so meaning that can you now create a causal statement, okay, knowing that the problem is based on this. If you do this to improve this aspect, it can improve this way. So it is a causal, okay, it's like an if else, not if else. So it is the causal statement. So can you formulate your hypothesis? Hypothesis means a small thesis, meaning that only based on your reading, based on your understanding on what you have read, can you now form your hypothesis. Can you formulate your aim and objectives clearly? So what exactly you want to achieve at the end of your thesis? Or I want to propose this. Okay, in order for you to achieve that, what are the steps that you have to take? So these are basically your objectives. So, and your objectives are typically in a much shorter time frame. Okay, so you have like 6 months to do that or 8 months to do that. Okay, and then it has a very clear aim also for each of the objectives. Okay. Do you know step to achieve them? Okay, can you justify the methodology used in the research? Or you say that, okay, you want to do experimental. Okay, then the next question is, okay, what kind of experimental test bed that you have constructed? Okay, how you constructed, right? So my additional checklist basically is to also check if the method is justified, all right? Are precautions taken against bias? Meaning that, do we see that from the presentation in the thesis and also the presentation during the Viva, do we see inclinations that the candidate incline or bias with a certain method from the start? Although we in general think that another technique or another method is much more appropriate. We want to know that. Okay, are the limitations identified? Okay, so typically is that you will not be able to solve, to fill totally the gap. So you will be able to fill up to a certain extent. So have you identified the limitations of your solutions? Okay, is the data collected properly, appropriately, and so on? Are you using sufficient data? So this is also the thing that we need to. On the results, we want to know how valid are the results. Okay, how extensive are the results? Are the results showing the best case, worst case, or average case? We want to know that. So it is not fair when you say that, oh, all other systems are slow, but ours are the quickest. How you define is quickest? Okay, others are testing it on the street. You are testing it on a racetrack. It will not be the same setup, all right? So we want to know, okay? So you cannot simply claim, all right? So how plausible your results from the theoretical perspective? This is highly important, all right? Because you have to link your results with the theoretical aspects, okay? When you form your premise, okay, in your thesis. How your work compared to others, okay? So we want to know that, okay? So my other checklist, okay, have the hypothesis been tested? Have you actually test your hypothesis? Okay, are the results shown to support the hypothesis? Is the data properly analyzed? Are the results presented clearly? All right, so some results are good to be presented using a certain type of graphs. Some, typically we say that you show graph because you want to show patterns. And you use table because you want to show the exact results. Okay, so how would you know which one is better or which one is the good one? Okay, this is by reviewing similar works in your specific area of research. Are the patterns identified and summarized? So this is what we want to know also from the results. What is the implication of your finding? So we want to see, okay, how significant is of your work to close the gap. To close the gap here, meaning that is to fill the gap. You most probably will not be able to fill the gap entirely, but we want to know on how much it can contribute. Okay, can it be applied? So what are the limit of works? Okay, for example, this works, okay, can improve accuracy by another 0.5%. However, it requires 1.2x more resources. So then it's more about trade-off. Okay, can you basically get a positive trade-off? Okay, and also direction for future works. Are the limits of the research identified? What are the main points to emerge have been identified? Are links made to the literature? Okay, meaning that to support your theoretical aspects. Okay, is there theoretical development from your finding? Can it lead to another model? Can it lead to another analysis, another method, whatever? Okay, are the speculation well grounded? So we want to know whether your claim is too much, too high, as if like your work is the most earth-shattering. Okay, so sometimes is that we like to boast our work when the actual contribution is much less than that. So this is on the potential Q&A. Some points when I mentioned on the potential Q&As may overlap. Okay, but this one is just to highlight what are the important aspects. Okay, when I review thesis. Okay, for examination. Now, preparing for oral defense. All right. The first thing that you have to do is to do a lot of knowledge sharing. All right. So as before you write your thesis, you write papers. And you know that writing, in between writing papers and between the iterations, meaning that the process when you are writing, it reveals gaps in your work that are not noticed before. The same case when you do a lot of knowledge sharing. So knowledge sharing allow you, okay, to number one, structure your thoughts. You would know how you should present your points, okay, which one should come first, which one should come next, the sequence of it, the structure of your thoughts. And then depending also on audience, okay, you will have the ability to adjust the depth of your presentation. Should you go deep? Should you now highlight this a little bit deeper? It depends on how much time you have also. If you are just given 5 minutes to present, so you know the scope of your presentation and the depth, okay? And if you're presenting, for example, to be reviewed by the professors, okay, you know, okay, how much detail you need to put in your presentation. So doing a lot of knowledge sharing actually helps a lot, okay? And at the same time, it improves confidence, okay? As making a good presentation is an acquired knowledge, okay? Now, another important aspect before you defend your work is to get peer reviews, okay? An MPhil and PhD candidate must publish. So this is the best way for candidates to validate their research works. So that's why you have to send, okay, to good publications or top publications, because most issues raised by reviewers will be similar to the issues raised by the examiners. But if you are just publishing just to get numbers, you will just get numbers. Okay? So those numbers may or may not help you in your examinations. And also do not feel overconfident, okay, when having many publications from your thesis works. Okay? Because what is examining in the Viva is the thesis, not the papers. Okay? So the papers are just supporting actors. They are not the main actors. The main actors is still the thesis. Okay? So you cannot say that, oh, but my paper is published in 2 Q1 journals. Okay, then the question, then the potential answer, if I'm the examiner, so what? Okay, so meaning that, so you need to be able to defend your thesis properly. The role of the papers is to support, okay, that your work has been peer reviewed, okay, and it is accepted, okay, basically accepted by your peers. Now, the next thing that you have to do, okay, is to prepare good slides. All right. So before coming to the Viva, okay, potentially due to the length of the thesis and also the time that the examiners has, we may not be able to read the thesis as detailed as possible. Okay. Because reading thesis also is time consuming for examiners. So most issues that the examiners may have with the thesis work, okay, can be answered through a good presentations. All right. So, but the purpose of this presentation is to add on. I cannot say add on. Okay, it's to 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 highlight the gist of your work. So that's why you should not change the semantic and the presentation of critical parts of the thesis. Problem statements, objectives, methodology, contributions. Those are the most critical part of your thesis. If, let's say, in your thesis, you say that there are 4 statements, okay, for your problems, and there are 3 objectives, okay, in your presentation, you should have 4 and 3 also for those things. You shouldn't change, all right? So otherwise, you will confuse, okay, and you may upset the examiners because what they have presented is this, and then what you're presenting is the other things. Okay, it also shows that your thesis actually was not ready to be examined, because in between the submission of the thesis until you present, so you have change of heart, change of mind. Okay, so you change it. So no, those things have to be there, okay, in semantic and in presentation as in your thesis. And then you need to put appropriate number of slides, meaning that you don't put too many slides, okay? Of course, the rule of thumb is 1 slide per minute. If you have 30 then you should be targeting for 30 slides. But if you are a good presenter, okay, you can present very well, so you might increase it to 40. All right. So, but if it's not, so go for the safe side. Okay, target for 30 slides or 35. Okay, not more than that. What is said is that when you're preparing so many slides, but when you do your presentation and then with the filler, so and so on, so you may need much longer time than what you initially expected. So the chairman may stop you. Okay, you have reached 30 minutes. Okay, so what is your last slide? So you don't want that. So you want to have a nice flow when you're presenting your work. And do not animate unless necessary. Okay, so this is talking about slide. And figure and table caption should be in the thesis, so to the citations, meaning that if you are referring to paper 1, okay, as reference 10 in the thesis, you should be using the same numbers. This one is to make sure that the consistency when the panel wants to refer to that reference in your thesis. The same case with figures and captions. And bottom line is, do not dump the thesis as slides. Okay, so you need to pick and choose. Okay, highlight the best possible. So that is why also, okay, it is good if you can prepare the slide, okay, as a guide for you to write your thesis. Okay, because this one will strip all those unnecessary fillers and so on. Just highlight on the strength and the focus of the thesis. Okay, you need to know your examiners. Once you have the Viva session has been set, okay, and you know who are your examiners, okay, so spend some time before the Viva to read examiners' works. All right. So this is basically because you want to know your examiners more, which area that they have worked before. Okay, so how good is their work? Okay, and whether their expertise is very well grounded, meaning that they are expert in their area, so that you don't try to cook up your answers when you are as if like the examiners don't know much. All right, so you need to know that. All right. So, and this one will also help you to estimate potential topic of questions, meaning that the questions that they may ask. All right. And if you want to know more, okay, you should also ask around. Okay, so you have worked with these examiners before. Okay, what kind of question that they usually like to ask and so on. So this one at least to give you some kind of confidence. Okay, when dealing, okay, facing them, okay, in your examination. All right. Next is that you have to make sufficient practice before the Viva. All right. So it takes lots of practice, lots of editing your slide, showing it to different people so that you can get feedback, okay, of some typos, which parts need to be shown first, okay. And basically you need to know what you're presenting by heart, okay, so that you don't read your slide. Okay, if you don't prepare, then typically it will clearly show, okay, during the presentation, right? So come to the Viva session prepared. Okay, first of all, bring your thesis, printed thesis. Don't just bring your soft copy of your thesis and then you scramble when the panel say, can you go to page 43, and then you scramble, try to open it, okay, with the projector open, okay, try to find where it is, okay. So you need to bring a printed thesis, the same copy as you submitted to your examiners. Also, you have to bring with you top 20 papers that support your thesis, just in case if they want to know more. Okay, I have disagreement. I disagree with the choice of this because I feel that this is better. If you have a good reference that become the basis of your work, okay, that clearly state or clearly reviewed the benefit and disadvantage of certain techniques over the others, for example, then you bring it, okay, to your thesis as a supporting material. Okay, bring pen, pencil, notebook to write down questions and comments. All right, and you must be nicely dressed, okay, nicely dressed and lightly perfumed, okay, if possible, not too strong, okay, or not perfumed at all, at least lightly perfumed, so that, or you bring along what air refresh, okay, to the Viva room, okay, come to 30 minutes before, so that you can sit there in the room, okay, looking at the walls, okay, so that you can immerse in the environment, you can you know become calm, okay, and during the session you have to show respect. All right, if the examiners or the chairman say something, okay, do not cut. This is a cardinal sin. Okay, do not cut your examiners, do not cut your chairman. Wait until they are done with their question, pause for a while, only then start answering. Okay, once you cut the examiner's question one too many, okay, then typically it's not a good sign. All right. So, and then when you deliver your presentation, you have to face the examiners. Okay, face the examiners. Okay, when you're presenting your work. So that's why you have your laptop in front of you, so you view whatever you have, okay, in your laptop. Okay, do not face the projector slides and then with your back facing the examiners. Okay, do not read the slides. Okay, so that's why in order for you not to read the slides, do not write full sentences in slides. Okay, but this one of course will make it harder because you need to practice a lot to make sure that what would come out, how you're going to describe that points. Okay, but that is the thing that you have to do. And then when you presenting with suitable pace. You're not presenting too fast, you're not presenting too slow, you have a proper pause between slides, between points, okay, and don't be overzealous with laser pointer, okay, do not click the laser pointer, turn it on, and then you point, okay, like playing the laser pointer on the screen, okay, all right. So also don't be a flasher, okay, if you don't want to describe, do not show, okay. What we don't want is that you show a slide for less than 5 seconds and then you move to the next slide. So you don't flash, okay? Whatever you show, you have to describe. So during the Q&A session, okay, it is highly important for you to understand the questions. Number one, of course, is the etiquette, okay? Second is that you have to understand the questions properly. If you're unsure of it, ask again, okay? So, and then in order for you to have time, to give you time to think, okay, just not to blurt your answers just like that, you write down the questions. Okay, write down questions have two importance. Number one is that so that you have time to think, okay, by writing it down, okay, also for you to refer back, okay, when you want to do correction, but it also allow you to show respect to examiners, right? So do not cut your examiners when they are questioning your work or giving comments. And you would notice if the situation become a little bit tense. All right, you know that, okay, you try to answer, the examiners would still disagree and so on. So you need to find a way, okay, on how you can diffuse the tense situations, okay? Meaning that, okay, you can simply say that, okay, I will discuss further with my supervisor, okay, or I can get further clarification with you after the Viva session and so on, just to diffuse the tense situations, okay? Do not try to fight fire with fire, okay? All right, so, and it is also okay to say if you do not know, okay, especially when the questions is outside the topic of your work. Okay, but not for all questions. When they ask you, oh, sorry, I do not know, okay, why you are using this technique? Sorry, I do not know. I have to ask my supervisor. So, okay, so this is not a good sign. But if they say that, okay, I know that a similar problem, okay, in this area where this is used, okay, what do you think about it? Can you use this solution in your work? If you do not know, okay, just say you do not know. Okay, so you can say that you can read further and then to discuss it with your supervisor. If it's suitable, you will add it in your thesis. So this is a way on how you can properly, with respect, answer questions. All right. Other considerations, okay, do not allow your family and friends, your community to congregate outside the Viva venue. Okay, so why I said this is that you do not know the outcome of your Viva. If it is a good one, it is a joyful moment, okay? You with your family, with your friends, okay, can celebrate outside the Viva room. But if the result is not good, it will amplify that, your embarrassment and so on. So better not to allow, tell them bluntly, okay, please do not come to my Viva. Whatever news, I will let you know. Something like this. All right? And no sweets and chocolates, please. Okay, you do not need to be, preparing something, okay, for the Viva, and then after the Viva, you give sweets, chocolates to the panel and so on. You don't need that. Okay, we are doing it professionally in a way that sometimes we feel, because we have cultural differences, but in this part, in this country, typically is that giving that seems like, we know that you feel happy if you get good result, but we don't want to feel that, okay, tight, okay, in giving our deliberation for the results. So yeah, just never that. Okay, all right. So good luck with your thesis defense. Okay, so if you have any further questions, you can drop comments, okay, to this email. So I'll now answer whatever questions, okay, that you have, okay, in this chat. Oh, so there's a lot of questions. Okay, let me check one by one. Okay. Okay. The questions for next session. Okay, what an examiner most looking, okay, from the student during the Viva. Okay, I think I have shown previously on the potential Q&As. So you can treat this as the leak questions for Viva defense. So you can ask this question yourself, okay, and try to figure out what the answer, okay, possible for you to answer during the Viva. Next question on here. Okay, at 11. There is no limitation to use our published work in thesis. Can we copy and paste our own published paper with some modification? The answer is yes. Okay. If you ask me, my school of thought, yes, you can use your published paper as main chapters of your work. Okay. I don't see that as an issue, because if you read the copyright, okay, you can use it for your own personal use, that which include thesis. Okay. Page by page Q&A, more details, please. Okay. Whatever you put in your thesis, be it one statement, be it one reference, be it one illustrations, each these individual parts that form a thesis is subject to scrutiny, meaning that the reviewers, okay, the examiners will check one by one whether this is appropriate, whether this is wrong, whether this one doesn't make sense, and so on. So each one of these, okay, will be under scrutiny. So it can be asked. So this is what it means by page by page. So for page by page, in the second Q&A, the panel will say, okay, the chairman will come, okay, let us now go to the thesis. Okay, page 1. Okay, are there any questions? Okay, from the content of page 1. So then, okay, so I don't understand this statement. For me, this statement is not accurate. So can you clarify? So the panel can ask that. So this page by page checking, okay, is the one that takes the most time. Your presentation itself, probably 30 minutes. Q&A for the first part, possibly 30 minutes or roughly like that. Okay, but the rest are from the page by page. So that's why the more you write, okay, the more you are exposing yourself. So that's why your writing has to be very, very specific, very direct, okay, and not to repeat. Okay, so this is what it means. Okay, based on your experience, mostly the potential outcome is B1 or B2. All right. So most of the outcomes, nowadays we have more B1s compared to B2. The reason was that SPS increased the correction time for B1 from 1 month to 3 months for PhDs. So this allow some works that just requires rewriting, rearranging some chapters and so on, which previously fall under B2 because it takes more time than more than 1 month, for example, now becomes B1. So I can say that 40% or 50% could be B1, the others are B2. All right. Can you explain an outcome of C? Okay, at what level works will get C? All right. C is when the work is not accepted in that particular form, okay, to get your PhD or to get your MPhil, which means that C here is beyond the editorial, it's beyond the writing, the write-ups in your thesis, all right, it's beyond that. So meaning that you have to redo some experiments, or the scope is too small, or the tools that you are using. So it's mainly on those. Okay, C means you have to do re-experimentations. B2, you may need some minor re-experimentations or further analysis. Okay, so C here means you need to do rework. Can you get C if he or she submitted more than one journal paper? Absolutely, because like I said, paper, okay, is just as a supporting actor to say that you have a review, your work has been peer reviewed, okay, but the examination is still examining the thesis, all right? So meaning that, so you can have 2-3 papers, good one, potentially IEEE journals, okay, but you can still get C, all right? Because what is the reasoning behind this? When you are writing papers, you have very limited scope. Okay, you have very limited scope in a way that your journal may be published up to 12 pages. Okay, the scope is clearly defined. But in the case of thesis, the scope is much broader than what you're presenting in your thesis. All right. So probably you have one part of your work which does not link well with another part of your work, creating a huge gap. So this will actually can be viewed as a flaw, okay, in your thesis work. So this may actually require a C potential. So based on my experience as a postgraduate academic manager, okay, there were cases when students having good journals still getting C for the Viva. All right. What will be additional bullet tips to get A? All right. To get A means you have to put a lot more efforts, okay, not only to make sure that the content of the research is top grade, but also the writing has to be good without flaw. The flow of thesis is nicely presented, all right, and you have to do a lots of peer review, meaning that if you get good good works published in good journals, along the way, before even you write your thesis, you get good reviews, good tips, and then you work on it based on the review given by the reviewers, the paper reviewers, journal reviewers, and then you improve along the way, then it's not impossible to get A. All right. At which year do you consider the paper is an old citation? When I say recent citation, it doesn't mean that you cannot cite an old citation. For example, let's say if you are doing, for example, a probabilistic neural network or recurrent neural network, okay, probably the first citation appears in the 50s. Yes, you can cite to say that, okay, this book was originally proposed in 60s, but in recent years, okay, it has can be categorized into 3 distinct subclasses, okay, and then but the rest, after you work with your old citation, you put all the newer citations, okay, so meaning that year, the absolute year is not there, meaning that it's not a valid argument. But if 50% of your works or your references are less than 5 years old, okay, then this is not considered as a recent references, okay. However it is, okay, so there is no clear cut how many percent it's supposed to be from the references to be recent and so on, because we don't want you to cite for the sake of convenience, because you want to show that your references have to be recent. You ignore all those important references, although they are old. So the point that we want to make here is to make sure that you don't ignore or you don't have gaps, okay, in the years when you are reviewing your works. I have also seen when examining works, okay, thesis, is that all the references, for example, now I'm examining it in 2020, the work stopped at 2017, as if there are no other works in 2018, 19, 20. You know what's the reason? Because those references are the references when the student defended the proposal. And then after that, the candidate has stopped reading. Okay? All right, so this is the point that I want to make. Can organize, okay. So, is there survey link? Okay. Do you, okay, do we need to add references in the presentation of Viva? The answer is yes, okay, but not all references that you put in your thesis. For example, in your thesis, you have 200 references. But like I said, in your work, you can have, or you could have like only 10 or 20, 15 works that really strong, the one that become the foundation of your work. So in your presentation, you just only include those references. Okay, so those strong references become the foundation when you're presenting your slides, okay, and the numbering, okay, of your references must be identical to the one that you use in your thesis, right? Is it proper to cite your own paper in your thesis? The answer is yes and no. Yes and no here depend, because it depends on different school of thought. My school of thought is yes, you can cite your own paper. Another school of thought say no. But trying to rationalize these two views is that we have to look from the basis of chapter 2. Okay, what is chapter 2? Chapter 2 is about literature review, meaning that you are discussing other people's work, meaning that does not include your work, unless it is your prior work in different degrees. Let's say you completed your master's, you publish your work. And then from there, it is similar in context with what you are doing at a PhD level. Then it's okay for you to cite in chapter 2. All right? So other than that, it shouldn't be cited except probably in the last chapter, when you are concluding or highlighting your contribution of research. So you can say that, okay, after you have presented the finding of your works, now you want to claim the contribution of your work. So you can, I have seen in some theses, they put references to their own work. Okay, first contributions, proposing a model for this. Okay, so some candidate added, okay, so this paper has been presented in this. So some examiners agree with that, some examiners disagree with that. So this is different school of thought. Whatever it is, if the work is derived from your thesis works, okay, there is a part at the end of the thesis where you put list of references. Okay, not only you can put the list, the list of published works. So you can put the published work, okay, and then I think it's not wrong if you want to put description on what the paper is all about. All right. So next, oh, there are so many questions. All right. Sorry, okay, I'm reading the question, yeah. Okay, how many papers do we need to publish to fulfill the thesis submission requirement? Okay, so as far as I know, with the latest ruling, okay, for those registering, okay, 2016 onwards, for MPhil, you have to publish only one papers, either as book chapters or conference or journals, right? For PhD, you have to publish either one index journal or in equivalent to index conferences. So for those in electrical engineering, so I think almost IEEE conferences are indexed in Scopus, if I'm not mistaken. So meaning that you can fulfill the requirement either one index conference, one index journals or two index conferences. However, I want to stress one thing, okay? Based on my prior experience, when I have discussion with senior students, some students feel that, okay, since the minimum requirement is one journal or two index papers, why we have to publish more, all right? So the answer is the role of the papers, okay, basically is to show that your work has been peer reviewed and your work is basically accepted, okay, by researchers working in your area. And at the same time, during the process of publishing those papers, you will have interaction with reviewers, at least from the comments, so that you can improve and so that you can address. Based on my experience and my students' experience, most issues raised by the reviewers, okay, will be raised by examiners. So meaning that you have a head start, okay, getting those issues to be pointed to you, and then you have fixed them, or you have figured out, okay, on how to improve them. Okay, so next question. Okay, should the response for examiner's question be brief? Yes, okay, the shortest possible to address what the reviewer wants. Don't try to, explain too much unless they want to know more. Okay, so for example, can you explain, okay, the limitation of these techniques A over other techniques B, C, and D? So you just respond based on my reading, okay? So technique A is based on this approach, which is appropriate for the problem that we are solving, compared to B and C and D whatsoever. So you try to answer it. That's it. Stop. Okay. Don't try to explain too long. Okay. Should we put figure and table number? Okay. Very important citation in slide. The answer is yes. But the figures and tables and citation must follow the numbering in the thesis. Is it appropriate if we prepared, I think, the slide with minimum 5 pages? I don't get it. Does it mean that just 5 pages or slide? No, I don't think it would be sufficient for you to present your work unless your work is highly analytical or in math. What is the mode of dressing on Viva date? I mean, suit or baju raya or traditional dress. No, you don't need to go for traditional dress. I think business casual is sufficient, meaning that for men you wear shirts, probably Oxford shirt, whatever. Okay, not necessarily with a suit. Okay, if you want to be elegant, why not? Okay, but don't be too elaborate. If you consider the Malay dress have headgears and so on. You don't need that. Okay. Uh, Before the Viva, student need to submit thesis that is already endorsed by the supervisor, department. Okay. So if the panel is not happy with the outcome, mainly why don't they inform first before attending the Viva? It is not putting a student in stress. Okay. The answer is because the initial results, okay, is not final before the Viva. There are many cases when the initial results is B, it can, results in C at the end of the Viva. Or from C, it can become B2 or even B1. So that's why the purpose of the presentation is to show that you know your stuff. Okay, so that's why we don't tell the student from the start. Okay, and typically we don't tell the supervisors also from the start, because we want to give benefit of doubt to students and supervisors to allow them to present your work. How about proposal defense? Is the same grade applied to Viva used in the proposal defense? The answer is similar in nature, but the grade that they're using is P1, P2, P3, but roughly they have similar results. For example, P1 is equivalent to A, P2 is equivalent to B1, P3 to B2, and so on. Are we going to get the same examiners for both proposal defense and Viva? Possible. Okay. It is not mandatory for the same panel for proposal defense will be appointed as the panel for Viva. Okay, because it may change. Okay. It is acceptable or recommended if you publish 2 papers on the same journal. Why not? Okay. If you ask me, okay, where should you publish your journal? You should publish your journal from where you get your references. That could be the best answer. Okay. Okay. If a paper work, I'm trying to understand this. If a paper, where? Okay, if I get it right, this question by SD is that that problem has been worked by another member of the group, and then you rework on that problem again with different structure. Can it be a problem? Yes, it can be a problem. Okay, but in order for you to justify the problem, it must be seen not as addressing the problem based on convenience, because your group member has done it using this structure A or this technique A, you are using this technique B. You must first identify describe the problem and try to show that your solution can improve the solution state. Okay. It will not be a problem. Okay. The journal must be in English, or can we use Malay? I think this one depends on the journals that you are submitting. I think for mostly in engineering, all will be in English, but there are some field where the journals publications are in Malay, I think it's acceptable, no problem. Even in Arabic. Okay. Okay. Since examiners send results before Viva, would it possible to know the result beforehand? No, from not for students and even supervisor. So we will keep it under secret until the day of Viva. The reasoning is that we don't want to create any possibility of supervisors interrupting, meaning that contacting the examiners or before like the candidate having leaked Viva questions. And we want also to give benefit of doubt, okay, because most of the confusions and issues can be properly addressed if you present your work clearly, okay. Can the result change after Viva? Yes, most of the time it can change after Viva. How or what can cause that? Okay, for example, they have confusions on the problem that you're working on. So, and then in your presentation, you clearly describe your problem have this, and this can be shown in the thesis where it is. Okay, because now the examiners have the opportunity to ask you, okay, in person. So that's why it can change the result. So can we choose our external examiners? The answer is we can nominate. We can nominate the supervisors to the supervisors. The supervisors can nominate to the school. However, the decisions would lie on the school and the faculty to decide. We may have our preferences, but our preferences has to be justified, because the process of nominating the examiners is that the supervisor will nominate three potential examiners to the school. And typically in the process for the supervisor to nominate external examiners, in my case, I will discuss with the candidate. Okay, so I will task the candidate to, based on their search, okay, for them to search which examiners have worked in similar topic for the past 5 years, for example. So we have now list of potential examiners. So, and then we do deliberations, okay, which name to be submitted to the faculties. We have to check whether they have students graduated themselves, okay, and then their history of examinations, okay. Once we know the potential examiners, okay, and then we submit to the school for them to make endorsement, okay. Meaning that the role of supervisor and students stop there, okay. But if we don't show inclination towards specific external examiners and so on, for example, the school may see that, okay, this supervisor keep on nominating these examiners, okay, for the past 5 students. All right, so then the school may have different view. So that one we do not know. Okay. Should we add references at the end of the slide? Yes, only the selected references only. Can you please explain one more potential question slide again? Potential question slide again. So these are the potential slide questions. So I think the slide will be shared with you after the session, so you will get those. Okay. For online Viva presentation, can we scan all evidences in a soft copy form? I don't think we need to scan all evidences, unless your evidence you have to obtain from pictures and so on. Yes, if that's the case, you have to scan. Better for you to have it ready during the Viva. Okay, before the Viva, you have all this ready in a folder, so that just in case if they need it, so you have them with you. A paper that structure I prove by experimental data that my system is good. Please comment. It could be, yes, it could be a contribution, but whether it's really good contribution or not, this is based on the acceptance by your peers. Okay. Is there any way website that I can compare two journals? Oh, this is outside of the scope, but to compare two journals, what does it mean to compare two journals? You want to take one journals, compare it with another journals in terms of content, or you want to compare two journals whether they are suitable for your publication? I'm not sure of this. What does it mean? But if you want to compare two journals, the journals are in PDF. In my case, I can just simply use PDF compare, then I can compare the content. But if you want to, in terms of which one is better, okay, which one is better, you have to check which one that able to fulfill your requirement, okay. Which one is accepted more, okay. There is no specific definite answer which one for you to use. After filing notification to submit thesis, was me submit after 3 months or we can submit earliest? This one, these 3 months durations or gap is required so that all those process of appointing examiners can be done. So that's why we ask students to file notification to submit thesis 3 months earlier. But there are cases that the process can be ready after 1 month, but don't take that chance. Should we put the evidence of my papers and peer review comment? Should I put the evidence of my paper and the review comments? Possible, but typically it's not required in the thesis. But it's okay for you to have it in the fall. You keep it during the Viva just in case, if this is the case. Should we put the evidence of my paper and peer review comments in the present slide? No. Okay. Presentation slide is just to for you to accentuate your thesis. It's not to replace that. The cartoon by the numbers is as scary as it is motivating. Okay, all right. So typically is that, yes, you do a lot of experimentation. It gives you tons of data, tons of results. But when you're presenting, you have to present it top down. You don't present it bottom up. So that's why it requires a lot of analysis and so on for you to present your work so that people can able to understand, okay, the points or the thing that you want to show, okay, rather than showing from bottom up. Okay. I don't see any other questions. Okay, I will pass it back to Wei.
So thank you very much for Dr. Nadzir for such an insightful and informative sharing. It's like from thesis preparing to like how to prepare like Viva presentation slide, and then what is the rule of thumb during the Viva. So beforehand, we would like to request the participants to fill in the feedback form here. So you can access the link in the chat area, or you can scan the QR code using your mobile phone. So we will send the slide, e-certificate, and prepare the UTM merit within 2 weeks for those who have pre-registered, attended, and filled in the feedback form. So beforehand, I would like to a big thank you to Dr. Nadzir again. And I would like to request all to turn on your video so that we can have a virtual group picture. Okay? So Zishan, when you take the picture, then you tell us, okay? So it's on the second button from the left to turn on your video. Manjula or Zishan, did you take the picture? Okay, I think.
Oh, please can you come again? How do you take the picture?
I think that's all. Thank you very much. So the feedback link is in the chat area, and then thank you to Dr. Nadzir again. So hope you all have a fruitful morning today. So thank you very much. Thank you, Doctor.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Prof.
Okay, thanks. Welcome.
Thank you, Prof.